All right, we're back, folks, with another book review this week. We are doing Endgame by Daniel Cole, not an Avengers spin off book. Not an Avengers spin off book, but in fact, another finale to a series. This is the final entry in the Ragdoll trilogy. It's the Fawkes and Baxter trilogy. It started with Ragdoll, continued with Hangman. This is the final one. It's unusual for thrillers to be continuing narrative, from what I understand. I don't read a lot of thrillers, especially not a lot of detective fiction or mysteries or anything like that. Contemporary thrillers don't normally do it for me, but this one for some reason caught my eye. Like, it was back when Ragdoll came out in paperback. Like, I had a joke where I was like, well, books that are advertised in posters on the London Underground are normally shit. And then I saw Ragdoll advertised there, and I thought, okay, well, let's give it a go. And it turned out I loved it. This series is basically about these detectives in London, like Scotland Yard detectives for the homicide and serious crimes department. And it's about the two main characters are Fawkes and Baxter. William Oliver Leighton Fawkes, who is just known as Wolf because he hates his pretentious name, and Emily Baxter, who is superb, like angry female character. She's brilliant. Basically, it's about those two are the main detectives in it. The second book doesn't have Fawkes in it because of events from the first one, but that's leading me back to my point. It's not usual for books to continue in a trilogy when they're thrillers like that. Daniel Cole said that he didn't want to do this typical thriller format where it's the crime of the week and at the end everything resets like an episode of The Simpsons, like everything resets to normal. And I think he pulled it off really well. It's still the three books do not have like a super strong interlinking plot. Like, if you read this, you wouldn't be confused in the plot if you hadn't read the first two. But what he does with it is he uses it as an opportunity to actually give character development and character growth for the characters. So it makes the connection with the people involved in the story a lot stronger. Like, Fawkes is a character who, he develops a personality for the two books that he's in. You get his backstory, you get what makes him want to be a detective, you get who his friends are, his family is, you get all of this stuff sort of have consequences and a knock-on effect, and you see how the events that have transpired throughout the series have developed the characters. And that's one of the really strong things with this series in general. So let's talk about this one, Endgame. It is a good conclusion for what it is. It is nowhere near as explosive as the first two. Like, the first two, the crimes in them get really over the top. This one is very much more down to earth, but it does a lot to tie up the loose character ends and stuff like that, which make it a strong entry in the series, even though it's not as like bombastic, big explosion action, like the other two were. It's very, like, Daniel Cole has a really interesting, very British writing style. It's something, like, it baffles me why I like these books so much in a lot of ways, because it does a lot of things that I really hate in other books. When writers use real world brands, or they talk about like these like locations that are too too specific. Like there's a discusses a character going to Tesco's and buying a specific ready meal, and like that kind of stuff normally jars me because I'm still trying to, even in a contemporary, suspend my disbelief a little bit. And when it's just like, oh, and then he went into the Tesco Express, I'm like, that kind of just makes me think of real life. But in this, I don't know what it is. Like again, it's hard for me to really say, but it just works with these characters. I think it's because it's very humorous. Like even though it's about these like grisly murders and like these really dark situations, it's approached with a lot of levity, and a lot of gallows humor and very cynical like attitudes towards things. But also it's not like morose in its humor, if you get what I mean. Like it's very much quippy banter. It's essentially what people say they love about like popcorn flicks at the cinema. This is like a popcorn read for me in the best way, not in a way that it's like insulting my intelligence. There's still a solid mystery in there, and like it's still well written, but it's not like, it's very simply presented. It's not going to be like a literary classic or whatever. It's very straightforward to the point, simple sentences, getting the point across. But the banter is strong. The characters come through in the dialogue. Like none of the characters are the same. Like no, you're reading a chapter from Fawkes' perspective, you definitely won't confuse it with something from Baxter, if you get what I mean. It's just solid, and it's not one that's going to like require loads of depth for me to delve into and explain the intricate themes of this book. Like I don't need to do any of that. It's just a simple light read. It'll take you probably a couple of days to read it. I think I read it in like 4 or 5 days because I've read it just bits and pieces at a time. But it's really compelling. It's definitely a page turner, as are the other 2 books in the trilogy. And I'm just glad to have found a detective work, like a piece of detective fiction that doesn't go on for like 30 to 40 books, like, you know, your Jack Reachers and that kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a nice little fun time, perfect for going into the summer, even though it's pissing with rain outside currently. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. I'll probably be discussing the Last Argument of Kings in the next video, which is the final book in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Look forward to that, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.